Hello and welcome to DDOCast episode 404, recorded in two parts. The first part on Monday, October 26th. I'm your host, Patrick. With me this week, we have a very special guest, Turbine's Commerce Manager, Tolero.
Hello.
Welcome back. It's been a
Thank
while.
you. Good to be back.
Yeah.
I know for some reason you managed to catch me every single time I was traveling or had some issue happening. So now at last, here we are.
I'm good at that. It's a personal skill of mine to get people at bad times. This week's screenshot, Cardinator celebrates the Night Revels in the 244th screenshot of the week. It's a very nice screenshot, very well themed. Yeah, it's a sweet, slick looking shot. I'm not actually even sure where that shot is taken, but the bat and the axe and the jack-o'-lantern head, it's all a really nice, really great shot.
It was tough for a lot of really good shots this week. It was really hard to choose from them. So keep in mind, as good as that shot is, there were a couple other ones that were like right neck and neck with that one.
It'll be next week, right?
Yeah.
Are you actually able to say how many of those you get a week, or?
It varies, and Jerry has better metrics on that. But once in a while, when he has trouble deciding, he'll call me in, and we'll choose between them, or we'll pull in extra people if we really can't decide. So some weeks I'm looking at about a dozen, maybe 15. So if you've never sent a screenshot of the week, now you know that your odds aren't that bad. So give it a try, see what you get.
Yeah, there's some great shots. We like talking about Dungeons & Dragons online nearly every weekend. You can watch us through Twitch, YouTube, the DDO forums, or from our website at DDOcast.com. DDOcast is hosted by Cyber Ears, the awesome podcast hosting network. Shows are usually available within a few days of recording, and the next show will probably be the next weekend. Figuring something out. Still kind of figuring out what that might look like. It might be an Ask the Devs, might be something else. We'll find out. You can stay updated by following us on our social media pages or from our website at DDOcast.com with our calendar. On the podcast this week, Ask the Devs! Woohoo!
Yay!
We have a dev here, so we're going to ask some
Regular.
questions. Yeah. Kind of doubling up a little, maybe. I don't know. It just kind of works that way. But we're going to be focusing on this DDO store because we just got a new one. And hey, that's kind of exciting.
Yeah.
So we're just going to... We've got some questions for Tolero, who... first off, maybe just... what's your role with Turbine? What do you do there?
I look at a lot of spreadsheets. No. So what I do is I manage the store for the DDO side of things. I'm part of a team that does the stores for multiple games. So I'm in charge of DDOs. So that could be everything from checking prices, deciding what goes in the store, seeing how stuff is selling, calling through people's ideas about what kinds of stuff we could sell or what kind of changes we could make to the store. I also manage big parts of the marketing components, so what kinds of screenshots should be used, or how often should we be sending out various emails about various topics. I pretty much touch, if it's marketing, I probably touch it.
All right, great. So we just kind of want to start. Why a new store?
So it's kind of twofold. So we had a previous partner that we had worked with for the store for basically ever since the store has existed for DDO. And that partner was moving out of that market. And then at the same time for us, we're coming up on the 10-year anniversary. So it felt like kind of good timing to start getting a new store prepared. So it was just the way the timing worked out, and it was a great opportunity for us to go back through and sort of look at things maybe we wanted to change, or change some of the tools, change some of a lot of it's under the hood stuff for us, but then, it also gave us a chance to refresh the front of the store for people too.
So what you're saying is there might be some reasons for the 10th anniversary that might be coming along?
Well, I mean, the 10th anniversary is a big topic around the office in general, but this was one part of it. Usually the 10-year anniversary is a good time to go through and do, give things fresher looks. It could be everything from the store to logos. 10 years is a big milestone for an MMO. So we want to make sure that we're coming into that 10-year mark with improvements and just a fresher look, basically, because 10 years still going strong.
So what does this new store offer players?
So the new store offers all the merchandise that was in there before, but also has a different shopping experience and a little bit of a more fresh UI. It's a more modern UI. When the store was first implemented back in 2009, uh, we were sort of trying things, and it was a lot of experimentation because we weren't sure how people would react to having a store inside the game because, back then that was kind of a new concept for most people, especially in the MMO areas. So there were things that we tried that at the time seemed okay, but as years have passed and more learnings have been gained, it was a good opportunity for us to, change the way that it looks, change the way that you move through the store, and just see if we could clean up the interface or add features that it just was sorely lacking. It felt a little dated. Stuff like, the store was always locked in one size, and that was it. And people's monitors have changed since then even, so just some of those things we really wanted to do something about them, and this was the chance to do that.
Okay. And this is trying to remember the first store came out 2008, 9,
Yeah, we did 2009, the beta, and then the launch was in September in 2009.
which was when we went to free to play with
Mhm.
which was a big, as I remember, it was a big thing at the day because we were probably one of the largest at the time to go to that model, if I remember
Yep.
correctly.
First, biggest, and one of the first more what we would consider Western style games. Because free to play had been a style of game for Eastern markets for a while before that, and there were a couple of other types of games that had free to play offerings, but they weren't as standard MMO, so to speak. MMOs were sort of that's where subscriptions live, and the concept of having any type of in-game offerings like that just was unheard of at that time. In fact, when we were doing it at the time, we weren't even sure. We might not have come out the other side at the time. We were like, this is either going to work great and people will like it and have lots of options, or they might hate it. They might absolutely hate it. We did our best to try to keep that from happening, but we were kind of gambling at the time. We didn't know what people would think of it.
Well, there were a lot of articles being written in the various sites about here we're going this free to play microtransaction model, and is that how it's like going to look like for other games. I think Lotro followed pretty quickly behind it, if I remember, and then now it's a much more common thing, if
Yep.
I'm not mistaken. So it's pioneers, woohoo! Way to go, DDO.
Yep. Exactly. We that's why when you see the marketing tagline, there's one that you'll see sometimes in some of our ad units that says "the game that changed it all," or "the game that started it all." There's a couple different ones, and a lot of that for us was a reference to that free-to-play movement because we came into the space where we didn't have anybody else trying it, and we put it out there. And one of the big pushbacks people at first said was, "Oh, you can't do that because everybody will just buy the best thing and that person wins." And they just had a really hard time grasping the concept that there were things that you could sell inside the game that didn't have anything really to do with a person's success, so to speak. They were just extra perks that helped people play and have fun, and it didn't impact the other non-paying people's ability to play and have fun too.
So there's been a couple questions about with this new store. Um, can we see our purchase history? Can we have favorites? Can we try on cosmetics still? Do you want to speak to that kind of stuff?
Sure. So the purchase history, there is a purchase history section for what you've purchased in terms of both your pure rank points and your virtual items. This is very similar to the old history. We're also working on importing the old store history, so any history for purchases that you had made, pretty recently that would have been logged in the old transaction records. If you don't see those initially, we're still importing those for you. Favorites is there. It has changed in the way that it works. So it used to be that you had to open the item, go down to the item, find the bookmark icon, put it in the bookmark, and then it would end up in your favorites. Then you had to go find where the bookmarks button was, which wasn't necessarily intuitive. So the new method is there's a star. Any item you see, doesn't matter if you're looking in the short view or the long view, there's a little star icon off to the right. You click the star, it's in your favorites. If you ever want to look at your favorites, it's always the little star in the upper right corner. You click the star, anything that you've had in your favorites is right there. If you want to pull it out of your favorites, you just click the star again and it goes away. And you can just add and take away as much as you want. And then the third one that you asked me, can you repeat the third one? There was
Uh, can we try on
couple.
cosmetics?
Cosmetics, yes. So cosmetics try-on is there. It's actually a lot better now that you can resize the store. So any item that is a cosmetic will have on the picture, in the lower right corner, there's going to be a little yellow symbol with a coat hanger on it. That's the try it on button now. So it used to be a link buried in the text that you had to click. Now it's just the little symbol right on the icon. So the nice thing is in the list view, you can pull up all the different armors all at the same time, resize your window to scoot it off out of your way, and you can just go click, 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 click down the list and cycle through all the cosmetics. It's actually a lot faster to browse them now.
So when you do try on the cosmetic, does it still have the purchase tag and the security thing on the clothes? When you go to a department store and try on clothes?
So what it will do is when you try it on, if you leave it on yourself and you're not switching between them, it'll stay on for a good, 15, 20 seconds, but it will eventually go away. So you can't just click the button and then run around and have that outfit. You'll need to, if
Unless
you
you
want,
like to click on the button every 30 seconds.
you could.
That would get a
And
little annoying.
to be honest, on the tech end, I'm also not 100% sure if the armor display is client side only. So I'm not even sure that anyone else can see you trying on the armors besides yourself when you're doing it.
Interesting. Um, so what are some things that are still coming with the new store? 'Cause I know that so bundles, we're gonna get bundles back. Are we gonna get a shopping cart? That kind of
So
stuff.
bundles we're working on. There's some method that I might be able to introduce bundles sooner than I thought I would be able to. What we're working out currently is the old bundle system. This is all very boring under the hood stuff, but the old system, the way the bundle worked was we added each of the things we wanted in the bundle and then put it into the bundle, and you just saw bundle, and we had to write a text description of the things you were getting. The new store has a nice tech where anything that is included inside, it will just list a mini version of it right beneath. It says, here's the thing you're buying, includes this, this, and this. And while that's very awesome, what it doesn't allow me to do is that top level item is a little awkward right now, because otherwise it can make it look like you're buying like this adventure pack includes these other things, but then it's kind of awkwardly displayed. So I just have to work through that. Cart wise, we're looking to see what we can do about cart. So the trick with the cart is cart adds an added layer of tech complexity to make sure that it's actually pulling the right items in, deducting the right amounts when it's going through and doing the charge. So what we're moving towards is seeing if we can deliver this streamlined experience that one would expect from a cart without having to actually physically implement a verbatim cart, right? What does a cart ultimately do is if you're a bulk buyer and you're buying lots of stuff, it lets you do that faster. So what we're looking at are other ways that we can let you do that faster that work just as well. I mean, you look at something like, the Apple Store and maybe these other stores that don't have carts at all, but we're trying to figure out how can we make it a fast experience without bogging down the tech side of it in the process. So trying to find the happy medium between those two things. So we have something what we call phase 2 of the store, which is any of our sort of features that we didn't get right out of the gate that we have that we want to be able to bring soon. So we're also able to do a lot more to the store than we were previously. The previous store, we had reached a point where we'd sort of gotten all the development work out of it that we were going to be able to get. And changes were very slow, and it took a long time to get it through an approval system. Da, 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 da. Our new partner we work pretty quickly with, so they're able to turn around changes a lot faster, which means that some of those suggestions that maybe were off the table in the past, totally valid to bring those up again. Like one of the things I was exploring this week is whether or not I can actually do VIP specific coupons, which is something we've always thought about doing, where if you're a VIP, you get an extra coupon that other people don't get because you're a VIP. In the past, that wasn't possible, and it was a huge ordeal to try to get it built. Now I might actually be able to do it.
I'm a favor of that as a VIP.
Right?
Um, I was say one of the things with like the cart, the thing that's nice about the cart is you can kind of bundle everything together and then use that the coupon code for you've spent this amount of turbine points. You can get like the 30% off of 3,000 turbine points or
Right.
whatever it was.
So the disadvantage of the determine your discount system was that when you wanted to buy more than one thing, but you couldn't get more than one of them in the cart at the same time, which is typically your account level purchases, so like your character slots and stuff like that. If you wanted to buy more than one character slot with that discount, you basically had to divvy it up into multiple kind of weird cart purchases. So we're revisiting if we can give a cool deal like determine your discount without making you have to use a cart to do it, and B, it might actually open up some possibilities to get discounts that you couldn't get when everything had to be stuffed inside the cart.
Kind of a trade-off there. It's nice. What about I want to talk about the store codes a little bit here because uh,
Yeah, that's one of our
it's.
other features we're working on is making those be less long and difficult to remember.
I would just like something that I could actually read on the show.
Yes.
It's kind of. I saw the ones for the hearts and the keys. I'm like, I am not going to read those. Go look at them.
Yep. So that's one of in marketing they call them vanity codes. Is typically like if you see like a grocery store or a mall, like a department store, they'll have this quick, easy to remember little codes, right? And they're called vanity codes because most code systems want to use a random set of characters because you're giving out batches and batches of like some of the codes we would give out for turbine points, for example, that have like that 25 letter unique code, right? Whereas a coupon like that, where you just want most people to be able to get the discount, you want it to be short and sweet. So the system's short and sweet part was not working yet, and we didn't want to hold up the entire store just for that. So we're working on getting that to where we can start doing some of those shorter, easier to share coupons again. Now, then the long coded coupons will probably be something we use for, say, like individual coupons. Like if we're doing a thing of, oh, first 10 people to whatever on Twitter, we used to have an issue where those coupon codes, once one person knew what the code was, everybody and their brother could get it. Now we actually have the capability to limit who all can get the codes. And this is one of the reasons I'm able to start doing VIP codes too, potentially. So but we definitely want those vanity codes because trust me, it's no less painful on this side when we try to make those codes because it's actually handled through a random generator. So I can't even like pick the nicest, prettiest code. It's like you basically make 10 versions of the code and pick the one that's the least awful looking.
Fair enough. Can you speak to so Turbine's got new partners, um, Exala and Emergent. Can you kind of speak towards what these partners are providing, what that relationship looks like?
So Exola is our merchant account manager that handles basically what the store looks like and all the virtual items. And Emergent handles a part of the payments portion of things. Not all of it, but like our alternate payments that have come out for people. So things like, it's not here yet, but Subway that we had mentioned previously, that's one option. Some of the international payments like your support banking and such. So these are the two new partners that we work with now, and it's been great working with them. They're very responsive, and it was fun. My favorite conversation with them was explaining to them what reincarnation is, because they just had no concept of what that was. And trying to help them understand, like, hey, a person, they level a character and then they reincarnate into the next life and etc. And they were like, wow, DDO is really neat. But they service, I don't have them off the top of my head, but they service several other video game companies. I want to say they've worked with, I'll have to go back and look, but you can check them out. They do have a website that, touts all the different partners that they have. But they're a good partner. We've really enjoyed working with them so far.
So I know new partners for a lot of players brings up concerns about security, personal information. Can you kind of speak to that and how those companies and Turbine are working to keep all of our information as safe as possible?
Sure. So our partners are PCI compliant. I mean, we're already PCI compliant ourselves, and that also includes we're also Safe Harbor compliant. And all of those are systems that are used to manage not only the protection of the data, but it also requires certifications and trainings to ensure that the data is continuing to be protected and that all the employees who touch said data understand how that works. We have to go through a training, actually, I think it's once a year, where they actually go through and they retrain you on everything about PCI and what the latest laws are relating to any sort of consumer information, any new consumer information that's become protected, and the do's and don'ts, which most of them are common sense do's and don'ts, but they're very, they're spelled out. They quiz everybody and make sure that we are certified to deal with any type of consumer personal information, email addresses, and any of that.
So speaking of the new payment, you kind of mentioned the new payments. Uh, First off, some of them are kind of strange. Burger King and Subway.
Yeah.
um, but how can players or how will players be able to be paying for points, and particularly for international players, what's that mean for them?
So in the new store, what you'll notice is you'll go in and the initial offering is to pick credit card as the primary one because it's the most common one that people, at least in the United States, use. However, outside the United States, credit card isn't necessarily the most common payment method. So you'll see an option for more payment options, and it'll display options based on your territory because that will vary by territory. Like I mentioned support banking earlier, and my understanding is that's very popular in Germany, but not as much outside of Germany. But if that's popular for German players, we want them to have that option. So you'll see different primary money methods like support banking. Boku is another one that we're working on. But there's also some more obscure ones that we maybe in the past didn't have an option to do. The Burger King and Subway thing is interesting because it's a new service that it's Burger King, Subway, and I believe CVS. And there's two things that allows you to do. It's you basically go in. These companies have an agreement with the payment service. You get your card and you use that to get turbine points with it, the same as you would use it in the store to get other things. And the trick with those is, in addition to being another way for people to get access to physical turbine points, because some people like to deal in cash and they don't necessarily have like a bank card to get points, but they still want points. So this is particularly true for younger players, people who don't yet have like financial independence. So if they have cash or they're getting birthday money or whatever, they can go grab a Subway or a Burger King or CVS card. And the second way is for folks who they really, really, really don't want somebody to know that they are spending points on gaming. They have that option to go, oh yeah, I'm just getting a Subway card. It's totally, I love Subway. And then in the meantime, they're like, oh, I'm going to get some turbine points while I'm at it.
You can
So
still get a sandwich.
totally could get a sandwich. Because it's interesting. Like in my hometown, I had some friends who were very concerned about, say, like their church knowing about their different gaming hobbies. And so when somebody was like, "Oh, what can I get you as a gift?" They're like, because what they really want is turbine points, but they didn't want to say that. So it was a little easier to be like, "Oh, could I get a gift card to Subway? I'm totally gonna use that while I'm, at work late or whatever." Um, but that's not the primary reason to do it. The primary reason is if you're a person who doesn't like dealing with credit cards or other types of banking options, this will allow you to get your turbine points using cash, the same as the old POSA cards that you used to see at, say, GameStop. And it also puts the cards in more places than a GameStop. If you don't have a GameStop close to you now, there's a whole bunch of other options you can look for.
So kind of we'll look at a little bit more behind the scenes just in the store in general as opposed to the news store specifically. Um, how are prices both of turbine points and the store items determined? What's that process look like?
The turbine point process is before my time, so to speak. They picked some amounts. They did some experimentation with different bundle sizes to see which one people gravitated towards and liked the most. And so those prices have been pretty similar for a long time. When we do international pricing, it's related to if there's any sort of weird exchange rate stuff going on. But for the most part, that's just pretty straightforward too. And in terms of store item pricing, some of that is comparing it to other comparable offers. So if I put in an adventure pack, I then look at the other adventure packs and go, okay, well, this one had a raid, but this one didn't, but this one has a landscape, but then this one didn't, and then this has 4 dungeons, but this one has 3, but yet it also had a landscape. And so you just sort of start sussing out the pricing from that. And then other items, if it's a new market item, we call it new market item if we couldn't find any other comparable thing in the store. Then we start just having the dialogue of, okay, well, how often are they going to need to buy it or want to buy it? And, well, if they bought it once, then what's that look like compared to if they had to buy it a whole bunch of times? Oh, well, if they bought it this many times, then that price would be outrageous, so we need to lower that. And there's a lot of different factors that go in. Or oh, do multiple people buy the thing at the same time, so therefore it changes it in another direction. And then some of it's just fairness. It's like, is it fair to charge this much for this thing when it's only this much for this other thing that lasts blah long? So there's a lot of different considerations that go in. It depends on the specific item. But it's always a conversation that happens with the whole dev team. We also pull in people from outside teams. We'll talk to Lotro a little bit, or we'll talk to the customer service team, say, hey, have you gotten calls on this price point? And then we analyze the sales results too. We go, look, when the price was this much, that was way too much. So we lowered it. No, look, everybody's buying it like gangbusters. And sometimes it's the inverse because that's just how numbers are sometimes. You would be really surprised at how much, and this is all geeky marketing stuff, but the difference between, say, the number 4 and the number 7. Even though 7 is more expensive, sometimes people would buy the 7 more because it visually is nicer looking. I don't know how else quite to describe that. It's kind of like why 9.99 works, right? Everybody sees 9.99. Subconsciously, we know it's $10, but we see 9.99. We're like, oh yeah, 9.99. So
Looks nicer. It
it
has
looks
less digits. That's
as
less
a
money,
digit.
right?
Yep. So
How do you come up with new items to add to the store?
new items often come from players directly. We'll see comments either in the community sites, or some of us will get private messages with suggestions, or sometimes we'll just be playing the game ourselves and we'll be wandering around and see, somebody mention something in general chat, or more commonly in your party. That's usually the thing, is you'll be playing with somebody in a pug, and then at some point somebody will get on the topic of something that they wished they could do. It's not a game changer, but it's like one of those little conveniency things where it's like, oh man, wouldn't it be nice if blah? So we take a look and we're like, I don't know, would it? And then we have a big conversation. But anybody from the dev team is welcome to have the idea and bring it forward. We spend a portion of time thinking of, okay, what's a new interesting thing that people might like? And then we try it and see if people like it or not. But a lot of our more popular items have come from player suggestions directly.
Guessing raid bypass timers would be at the top of that list.
Raid bypass timers was one. Another one was what was it? I can think of another good example normally, but originally when we did the gift for the Motu stone, people were like, "Oh, you could totally sell it." We were like, "Could we? I don't know." And we talked to players extensively about it for a while. We're like, okay, well, what if we did this? What would we need to do to make sure that it's still fair? So there's items like that. Sometimes some of the boost potions are things that people have suggested. The remnants potion, for example, was totally a player suggestion. They're like, hey, why don't you have a way to boost remnants? So we boosted the drop rates and then additionally brought out the potions. There's also some of the cosmetic items that we've put in have come from player suggestions, or things where we've wanted to have a type of cosmetic in the game, but we didn't necessarily want to put it as an e-store item. We put it on treasure. So then we added the mirror because people were like, oh, I wish I could have like the looks of the stuff I find in treasure. And the old method people thought that we could do for that was to let people craft it. And Severlin did some work under the hood, and he's like, well, actually, with this tech here, why don't I just let them steal the appearance entirely? If they see a piece of treasure they like, why don't we just mimic it over onto the character? We're like, that's so much quicker and easier than what we were originally thinking of doing. So, but I mean, I'm always perusing for new items. And some of them, people have made suggestions for items that I still have on the wish list that we just haven't gotten to yet.
What about some of the bundle items? Any thoughts on maybe making some of those items available not in a bundle? So like the XP stones, the Big B hands, that remnant potion you were just mentioning. These are things that are only really available in these bundles.
So sometimes we like the bundles because the bundles can provide a different type of marketing tool for us. Other times we look at an item and we're like, you know what, we think we could just bring this out all the time. Limited availability is something that is, if there's certain things that we think are cool, but we're kind of nervous about how much players do it or how many of them are out there, we'll restrict it down into these bundles. Big B's hands are something we're still debating. They had one run already. We're still making, I think, a few tweaks to the terrific trunks. We're not sure that we have the right boost amounts in it because I think it was the second tier boost and not the top tier boost. But we're debating whether the pointy fingers are better individually. There's also things like, maybe we don't want to put it in the store. Maybe we want to put it in daily dice as a rare reward. So we'll have those deliberations before we decide on one. Same with the remnant potions. We're like, hey, should remnant potions just be a thing that you get all the time? Are we comfortable with people getting them all the time? Will they burn themselves out on them? I don't know. So those are the types of things that we think about with bundles. Other bundles are a tech hurdle. So Menace of the Underdark and Shadowfell were designed originally to be packaged together because some of that content is gated so that if you buy one adventure pack, you can't get to it unless you bought this other one over here. And that's just a simple tech hurdle that we have to get around. Because what we don't want to happen is for somebody to buy one adventure pack, walk up to the door and go, oh, I can't get there unless I bought this other one too. That's just awkward. We don't like that type of flow for people. So we're working on getting that back in the store though for people because I know that not everybody buys the expansions with the DDO market because the DDO market requires a credit card for you to use it. Whereas when you're buying them in the store, you can use your turbine points. So we're trying to get that back in there for people who still don't have Shadowfell and Mists in the Underdark.
Should make the for the gating quest for all the caught in the web flagging. Make it so you can't buy part 2 until you already have part 1. Might be an option. There's a lot of tricks to that.
Yep.
So what question I see a lot is why is there +1 armor and weapons in the store?
So there are so there's many types of items in the store, right? Some of them are cosmetic, some of them are what we call convenience, and then there's also what we call the oh crap items. And oh crap items are items that are in the store and they're only meant to be there in case you're really, really stuck. I mean, really stuck. And the +1 armors, we also have like arrows and some other things. These aren't things that we expect people to buy all the time or to even need to buy because you can get them for free in so many other ways, just their gameplay. But if you're underprepared and you stepped in the dungeon not really thinking of it, and with the armors, the primary example is you've got this set of armor you wear, you walk in the dungeon, you never have to worry about anything. You just repair all the stuff you need it, you get in, and all of a sudden your armor's broke. This is less of a problem since we added the repair button to the UI, but the original purpose of that was my armor's broke and I need to replace it. Oh crap, and I'm in the middle of the dungeon and I don't want to leave the dungeon to have to go to a vendor. Another option is, oh, I need a basic item that I can just disjunct, or it was kind of it's an uncommon purchase. We really don't expect people to be buying that item all the time. We actually try to sort those a little lower too. But they're not something that we expect people to ever expect to buy. It's more like you literally ran out of every possible options and you were you don't know what you were thinking, you were unprepared. But what we don't want you to do is get in a situation where you're in the dungeon, some weird circumstance comes up that we can't even predict, and you're like, ugh, if I only had blah, I wouldn't have to start this dungeon over again. So that's what that tries to do. Some of the UI changes we made over the years have minimized the need for them, but we also didn't want to take them out and suddenly have somebody go, oh no, I used to get these all the time because of random reason that you weren't thinking of. It's hard to predict all the different ways that people will use items, whether from the store or otherwise. Like there can be some really nuanced ways of using the stuff that, generally speaking, we like to let players play the way they want to play.
I'm sure players are constantly finding weird situations that the dev team has simply never imagined could ever possibly happen.
Yep, all the time.
For creative players.
But that's
manner.
good.
So I just want to ask, why isn't, there's this thing I think is really cool. It should totally be in the store, but why isn't it in the store yet?
Why isn't it in the store yet? It depends on what the thing is. So as part of this, what new items can we add to the store? We'll go through and try to suss out what would it take to get it in the store, because some changes would require us to hog, say, dungeon master's time, dungeon maker's time, and do we really want to say, oh, well, this person was going to work on this raid for blah update, but I need him to work on these items for the store, which is going to cut into like 25% of their raid work. So now that raid's going to be 25% less cool. Do I really want to do that for this thing? Less cool raid, cool new store item. And we sort of let those two concepts go head to head to see which one's cooler. And then other times it'll be, well, we're going to do this new treasure cool thing for this package, but treasure cool thing is also made by the same person that we need to implement this other eStore thing that we came up with. So it's usually a matter of juggling which things we want when. Or sometimes we're like, oh yeah, we could totally do that. It would be like a 2 second change, woo, and there it is. It just really wildly depends on the items. There's been items that I've suggested to the team that I expected to only be like 10 minutes worth of work that took like 3 weeks, and the inverse is also true. Things that I thought would take months to implement, and somebody came in and changed one line of code, and ta-da, here it is. So so if you have a thing that you think would be really cool and you're like, why isn't this in the store yet? Please continue to suggest them. Some things are even things that maybe you suggested in the past and we were like, no, we could never do that. And now we're like, oh yeah, we could totally do that. We just figured out how to do it. It's always worth checking.
So on that topic, how can players suggest things that they want to see in the store or maybe be on sale?
Sure. So we tend to peruse the DDO forums a lot in the store feedback section. We also tend to watch our social media channels like Facebook and Twitter. Live streams are another cool place to leave us info. A lot of times, since Jerry streams right next to me, and so when people have an interest in a certain Easter item, he'll just turn over his shoulder and tell me, and it goes on my idea list, and then the idea list gets talked about with the dev team. So those are all really great ways to send us the ideas because we check them all.
How do you decide what goes on sale, what the freebie of the week is? What's kind of that process?
So the sales, what we try to do is we try to group things together in sort of logical themes. Like if you see something that is, buff your character, we're going to want to pick items that go with that theme so that when you see buff your character, you're like, oh, this sale probably has buffs in it. Or there's one sale that we never introduced that one of the older store guys used to suggest, which was tome up. Instead of tone up for summer, it was tome up for summer. So if you saw Tome up for summer, you could guess that Tomes were probably going to be on sale. Um, but we like to rotate which ones are on sale. We try to make sure it's not hyper predictable because we also don't want people to feel like, oh, well, every 3 weeks, blah is on sale. We try to mix it up. In terms of the free sample, we look for a couple things. One is we want to keep it below a certain price point because the idea of a free sample is that it's not the most expensive things in the store, right? But we also try to pick things that have decent synergy with what's happening in the wider DDO channels. So, like, for example, with the Night Rebels, we want to make sure we have Night Rebel keys for people. Or if we know that there's going to be a new adventure pack coming, oh, maybe we should put some Bells of Opening as a free sample because people are going to be in quests finding doors that they maybe aren't prepared for. And maybe they didn't realize there was such a thing as a Bella opening for their guy that has no, like, secret door finding skills or chest unlockings. Or just there's a number of different items like that. And sometimes we literally just want to raise awareness. Sometimes the store has so many items. I want to say that there's something, if you count each individual item, there's about 4,000 or so items. And so with that many items, no matter how good we try to sort them or put them in categories or group them in sales, at the end of the day, it's sometimes nice to just pick an item that maybe not everybody was aware of, put it as the free sample, and hey, now they know that that's a thing because they got one for free and they could try it. Or maybe they saw it and they were like, well, I don't know if I'll like it or not. So free sample gives them a chance to go, okay, let me try it once, see what I think of it. But a lot of times it's just reminding people that stuff is there.
Awesome. I'd say, this is a suggestion, guild airship beacons a little more often.
Guild airship beacons, yeah. Yeah, the guild
It
one,
happened
we
once.
like there's certain free samples that we like to do them, but at the same time, we don't want people who can't benefit from the free sample to feel left out. Another good example of that is the Omnispell Dust. We know that people like the free Omnispell Dust coupon, but if you're not a caster, you're not using Omnispell Dust. So we're like, well, so what we try to do is with some of those, we had done them infrequently so that people who say aren't in a guild or they're not a caster or, they don't want to change their hair color or whatever the situation is, that those people don't feel like the free sample has nothing for them.
That's fair.
But we can definitely rotate in some more guild portals.
I can tell you how many times I've been on as like the freebie of the week because I still have all the ones from that and I've never actually bought them otherwise. So, um, so I want to kind of talk a little bit more broadly about kind of more the brand management and that aspect of your role. Specifically, so what steps does Turbine take to continue bringing in new players?
So the primary thing we do is digital advertising, right? So Google AdWords. If you're a player and you haven't seen a lot of ads, chances are that it's because we already have you. We're trying to reach out for people who aren't currently playing. So if you're currently playing with us, and we don't need to saturate your computer with ads for us. But we're going to places like looking at Facebook to see any of, not just any of the fans that we have, but additionally anybody who is similar to someone who could be a fan. So we'll put feed ads out. We'll also put out Google keyword ads, banner ads. Sometimes we do site wraps with different gaming sites. Another less common thing that we do, but can also be pretty effective, is in some of the free-to-play websites, they have giveaway codes. So we'll take a batch of like some smaller sort of starter packy bundles. We'll do giveaways of those into the site. We'll load up, say, 10 or 20,000 of those codes and go, hey, come check us out. And we'll load those codes up because there are players who, it's pretty popular for a free-to-play player to move from game to game to game. So as long as we get ourselves out in that hopper of, hey, we're a thing you could try, they'll come in, they'll give us a try and check us out. Some of them stay. So there's also some other things that we've been looking into. There's a lot of different things you can use. Everybody's always excited to hear about things like Will Wheaton, right? Getting Will Wheaton as a dungeon master is amazing, but one of the really awesome things about getting a dungeon master like that is it gives you an opportunity to reach out to channels that maybe don't look at those methods. Because somebody goes, hey, did you hear that Will Wheaton was the voice in blah? Okay, well, that's a type of impression now. Somebody's mentioned DDO to someone else who might have otherwise not. So there's a lot of different maneuvers we can do like that.
So we mentioned it a little bit before, but what are some challenges you face with promoting a game that's 10 years old?
10-year-old game. It's kind of funny because it's almost not a challenge, it's almost a perk. Because with an MMO, people want to feel like the game is going to be there for them, that it's not going to go away, that it has longevity. With other products, when you're that old, you're kind of seen as old and you're going to be dated. But with an MMO, when you see something that's been around for 10 years, that tells you that that's something that you can come in, and if you join that community, that community is going to endure. And for people who like to play multiplayer games, you want to have people you can play with. So when you come up to a 10-year-old game, for us, we like a message of we're still going to be here for you. Like, come try us. We're not going anywhere.
Great. Anything else you want to mention for players about the store or the game or anything like that?
So the store, there are some issues we've been tracking down for people. I do know already that we're making some headway on the fact that when you buy an item right now, there's a weird UI bug where you buy the item is totally in the character data, but it doesn't show in your inventory. But then when you log out and log back in, it appears. We're pretty sure we think we know what's causing that. So it'll just be a matter of implementing the code so that it stops doing that. But any sort of little weird wonky things that you see in the store, please do submit a bug report for us. Those are really helpful for us as we're hammering out this sort of final steps of the store. Because we thought we had that one pinned down. We had gotten a lot of good reports on it from Lamania because it was not something that showed up in our internal environments. And we'd gotten the reports on Lamania, checked it. We were pretty sure it was a config issue, changed the config issues, went and checked it again, wasn't happening. We were pretty confident. And we think something tickled it in the final live environment because it's not 1,000% identical to the Lamania environment because Lamania has its own environment for the store. So things like that, when we get those bug reports, those are super valuable to us now. We work with our partner, with Xsola, and we go through and try to fix as many of those things as we can. So definitely let us know if you're finding things, or even just improvements, things that you're like, oh, I like the new UI, but I wish blah. Like one of the things I've seen is people, as much as the scrolling makes it a little nicer now, like you don't have to go inside each item and back out to browse it. For some people, they liked that list view in the old store that was a little bit more narrow. So one of the things I can bring to the store guys on the tech end is say, hey, can we get that smaller, more condensed view so that people can see a lot more items at the same time than what they currently can?
Great. Well, thanks a lot for spending some time with me and for doing this interview. And great job on the new store. It looks great. I don't use the store a whole lot, but I certainly like not having to page through things, and it looks pretty sharp. So great job. And give all the folks out at Turbine a hearty salute from DDOCast for me.
Will do. Glad you like it. And like I said, we're really looking forward to more feedback from folks and continuing to make improvements on it.
Great. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
And again, a special thank you to Tolero for joining me for DDOCast for Ask the Devs DDO Store. Really appreciate her time and taking a little bit of her evening to let players know about the new store and just kind of have that back and forth Q&A. Really appreciate it when the devs do that. We're going to get into game news. First off, there are new quarterly wallpapers. So if you like those, we'll link to those in the show notes. There's also was a hotfix this week. Some notes from that. Improved Critical now works on attacks with no weapons, like unarmed, hand wraps, and druid animal forms. The heavy armor fighter feats now work with Warforged adamantine armor. There were a couple of things that they tweaked with the Night Revels. They fixed an issue that could cause Kobold's newest ringleader and Undernew Ravagement to complete too early. The Reveler's Regalia's Night Horrors clicky now has its correct 90-second duration. House J will now create new instances with lower populations to improve performance near the graveyard. The Draught of Midnight will now provide more Darkest Chocolate while in the actual graveyard. Candy tooltips now accurately describe their duration and cooldown. They fixed an issue that could cause the quest to become stuck on certain objectives if monsters were killed too quickly. The Regalia now displays properly on half-orcs and PDKs. The Hat of the Night Hag now displays correctly on Sun Elves, and the drop rate of keys was increased slightly as well. There's a little bit of information that they shared regarding the Night Revels, specifically about how best to get keys. If you are 5 levels under the level, and the challenges, if you're 5 levels under the level of the challenge, it will give you the best return on completion. So a level 10 running a 15 challenge, a 20 running 25, 28 running 23, etc. Most over level, so that's how to get the best return. That'll get you 23 ingredients. The opposite is also true. A character 5 levels over the level of challenge will kind of have the opposite effect where you won't be getting hardly any. As far as trying to get keys, there was some questions about that. As long as the monster is within the challenge rating range of you to provide a reward, you can get a Revel's key. If when you kill the monster you get a message saying it was too weak to provide a reward, you cannot get a key from it. Within the particular challenge rating range of you, the chance for a key to appear is not adjusted by the monster's difficulty relative to you. It's a binary thing. Either you have a chance or you don't. Let's see. There was some new information or kind of thoughts on the player feedback from the balance and class passes. After reading the player feedback, they are moving towards a system where meaningful improvement to specific characters or classes will sometimes be added to the game in smaller doses. While they realize everyone wants a complete and full class pass for the remaining classes, they're changing direction slightly and bringing some balance relief in meaningful but smaller doses, so players won't have to wait so long for their favorite class while their favorite class lingers behind. They're also aware that Many Shot scales more slowly at lower levels. They will be changing it to have more of its power up front so characters who are leveling get better use from it. Regarding level 30 and epic TRs, the devs popped on the forums and said that just a reminder that epic levels are increasing to level 30 with update 29. So if you're working on an epic character for the purposes of true reincarnation, you might want to level before update 29, as we'll be taking more XP to get to level 30. Yes, they have read the question about what happens when a 28 character starts a reincarnation and then level is increased. They're discussing that internally. They're still working on that, but what Jerry said was if you already have the reincarnate button on your load screen and that is available, you've already met the requirements for reincarnation, so they expect you to be able to continue that reincarnation process even if the level cap goes up while you're just kind of sitting at 28. Bonus days for the week. It's +2 loot through November 1st. There's also, of course, the Night Revels going on this week. There is a new code for 4 free keys. That's a different code. You can get 4 more keys, different than the preview about a week ago. So if you can, there's 8 keys for you there, although I think the other code may have expired. Store news, some really good sales this week. You can get 35% off of Harper Agent, Enhancement Tree, Stat Tomes, Veteran Status, and select classes. You can also get a free Lesser Slayer account boost once per account as well. Community news, the 164th Chronicle came out. DDO Wiki got a shout out for their website update. DDO Gamer is giving away a copy of the Stormreach campaign. You can enter that a lot, actually, as long as you're sort of good at haiku. The High Lords of Malkir are hosting a trivia event on Halloween. That's this Saturday. That'll be on Sarlona. It's got trivia and also a costume contest. The guild for the week, the Elves of Eberron, are a level 78 guild on Orion with people active most times. The guild is looking to increase their roster to organize guild raids. So if that's you, you can check them out. The comment for the week is, if you had to become undead, what would you want to be? Probably a lich, because they're fairly smart and they can cast spells. They get all sorts of really cool abilities. Maybe a Dracolich, that could be fun too. Fan site news. We got a shout out for our 403rd episode on DDOCast. DDO Players News had their 56th episode looking at the latest stuff going on. Damsels of DDO headed back to Druid's Deep. DDO Gamer looked at the Night Revels. The Shady Rogues went into the Tier of Dakan. Enrique looked at the Night Revels preview. The Stormreach campaign looked at the history of the Silverflame, which is a really great post, particularly if you like lore. The Order of Syncletica was looking at changes to Many-Shot, specifically in how that relates to his monk builds. And also 10k stars as well. The Night Revels is here. I hope you're enjoying that. It's kind of a fun little deal. The new DDO Store is also here, so they have a link to that. Some information on that. The DDO stream team took over the weekly Wednesday lunchtime live streams. You can check that out. Cordovan was out of the office some of this week. Cordovan was also joined by Tolero to preview the Night Revels and look at the new DDO Store on their Friday at 4. Some blogs to highlight this week. DDO Gamer, the Stormreach campaign, the DDO Gamer had a interview of the guy who wrote Stormreach campaign and published the book. So you can check that out, why he was interested in doing that and kind of what that process looked like. Enrique had a look at the Night Revels, which we'll link to. Tactilicious and Craftalicious had a blog about challenge in the game and how it's kind of changed and been impacted by the balance changes. Then Axel had a video on the reward design of Night Revels, which we'll link to. The Shady Rogues are running the pit, at least looks like it's going to be in multiple segments, but we'll link to that. Shown us, it was kind of fun to watch those guys do one of my favorite quests. I also want to link to Rowan Hill's blog. She used to play DDO and be a part of the DDOcast, but hasn't for a while, although we did bring back one of her old segments for our 400th episode. She had a blog on what makes you spend money. It was kind of specifically in a game, so it was kind of a neat little read, so we'll link to that as well. DDOcast news this week. If you missed it, DDO Splat was a hoot. It has been described by many people as the best one we've done yet. We ran Undermine, yes, Undermine, the quest that they give you explosives in permadeath, and we blew each other up consistently throughout the quest. It was a lot of fun. A lot of shenanigans going on there. So if you want to check that out, it's on our YouTube as well as DDOcast.com. I'm also still getting out the 400th episode prizes. I apologize for the delay. There's some things that kind of went with that. Partly my work schedule, partly some of the things I had to kind of figure out and how to give out those prizes and stuff like that. So I'm still working on it. If you did apply for that, check your however it was that you posted or commented to enter. Check whatever's associated with that. Check it this weekend and then check it kind of mid next week, and there might be something fun for you there. Our lightning post this week, Day News hopped on and said, in regards to tanking, don't forget the panic button abilities for emergencies. Whether you're the main tank or an emergency unintended tank, Not just Undying Vanguard from the Sentinel Destiny, Tea with the Queen, removes you from the fight for a few seconds, although it may not be advisable, but might keep you alive. There's also Uncanny Dodge, which is a great point. That's 50% dodge bonus for a few seconds. Primal Avatar has Primal Travel, and also gives you a triple tumble backwards to get away from danger. Just watch your placement on that. Shadow Dancer has a 100% dodge clicky, which is twistable. There's also some nice spells like Radiant Shield to reduce incoming damage, which your friends can also cast on you. Dark Discorporation and blocking can also help save you. There's also Shadow Cookies from the Festival, which give 25% incorporality, which is another nice defense layer. He also mentioned that he liked the improved crit changes overall, means things are working properly, and also leaves design space for other bonus types later. And the compensatory boosts to those named items means they've gone from phenomenal alternative weapon type, no improved critical investment needed. And he's also been enjoying the Night Revels. Basura on the DDO forums basically asked why we did an episode on tanking. Who was the target audience for the podcast? Does the game still need tanks? You can debate the need for tanks in the game, at least in terms of the stereotypical heavy armor and shield build. We gave some focus to building a tank with that episode. The kind of what we were really going for was tanking as a skill, not just specifically that. It's not specifically just building. So, yes, there are absolutely needs for tanks. I understand that not everyone utilizes what they think of as a tank, but most groups in raids utilize some sort of tanking tactic. That doesn't mean they throw someone with a shield and heavy armor in front of the boss. What it does mean is there's usually someone who is holding aggro of a raid boss or any boss in game or monster in game, really, but they're holding aggro to enable the other members of their party to apply DPS without as much of a concern of getting hit or squished and stuff like that. That's where we're really coming from in terms of tanking in the last podcast. So, it doesn't matter who it is. It doesn't even matter if they're built to tank. If you take, say, the Storm Reaver and say, hey, you, party member number 4, you're on the Storm Reaver, take him to the other side of the map and, have fun with him, that person is tanking. Whether or not they're a tank, they are tanking. And that's really where we were coming from with that discussion. I also come from a standpoint and a philosophy of teaching people the, quote, proper mechanics. We can debate what the proper mechanics are, but I like to teach people what are proper mechanics in a raid specifically so that they know how to actually run the raid as opposed to just brute forcing it every time. There's a lot of advantages to that. If they want to start leading their own raids of that, they know more and they have more knowledge of that, so they can be a better leader. They know more about the raid and its intricacies. It also means that, if you go up to higher difficulty levels, you may not have as much room for error to be sloppy or undisciplined in running that raid. Stuff goes sideways. The discussion we had specifically about placement is always applicable. You need to, in some fashion, kind of control where these raid bosses are so that you can not have everyone getting run over and getting killed, stuff like that. But really, a lot of it for me comes down to I see a lot of folks when I am plugging raids, they're sloppy. They could run better. It was said that one of the things that was said about our episode was that giving bad advice makes for bad players. I think that's true, but I don't think talking about tanking is bad advice. I think what is bad advice is taking a group of particularly newer folks into a raid, giving few instruction, few explanations, and just smashing the raid with brute force. It can be sloppy, a lot of deaths. They don't see how the raid can be run. I personally get a lot of enjoyment out of running a raid in a very clean, organized, tactical manner. It's something that I enjoy about leading raids in particularly, and kind of assigning people different roles and having that big picture view of what's going on. So that's kind of where that was coming from. I get that not everyone necessarily needs advice on tanking in raids, but there are plenty of folks that do, and if you don't, well, I hope that you are willing to pass these episodes that have topics that you aren't as interested in. You find someone who maybe could use that episode and the information we have in there, and you can pass it on to them and let folks know about DDOCast. And so that can always be a really good thing. And, maybe you learn one or two things and you can stick them in your back pocket, like knowing more about the raid and having a better idea of what goes on. So that's kind of where the philosophy was there. I figured that maybe the people don't use every piece of information. They don't need to use the best practices in a raid, but that's their choice. It's better than not knowing certain things about a raid that can make things harder. If they knew it, being easier to raid for everybody, that's kind of what I'm going for. So, the survey question for the week. What is the best source of in-game ham? These days, really, find someone with Shirati and wait for them to spawn a ham barrel. What this is it's an explosive barrel with a pig on top of it, and it blows up and it throws 50 ham everywhere. That's probably the best place to get that. You can find them in game, but that's the best source. Is one of those moments where you get one of those nice big barrels of ham, and it really drops a lot. It means you're going to be needing to find them in Epic, but that's probably the best place to find some these days. Barring that, you can always check the auction house. There's probably some there. Although I do find that most of the time people kind of tend not to pick up the ham, which is unfortunate. So with that, we're going to close out the show here. Thanks again to Tolero for joining me for Ask the Devs, and thanks for listening to the show. Thanks for all the contributors of DDOcast. Really appreciate the help that they are putting in to make this show better. As the second half of the show is evident, the show's a little more exciting when it's not just me talking to myself and talking just to you guys. A little back and forth really helps. So really glad that we have a lot of folks that really are interested in participating with that and help me out with the show. Thanks also to Turbine and Wizards for making the games, and thanks to Cyberbears for hosting the podcast. Hit us up at DDOcast.com for show notes, our calendar, previous shows, swag, and other fun stuff. If you'd like to be a part of the show, if you have a comment on this episode, if you have questions you'd like us to ask, or like to ask us, or a topic you'd like us to debate, you just want to say hi, you can leave a comment any place you can, or the show. I monitor all of those. You can also email us at ddocast@gmail.com. You can find us on social media and follow us for the latest cast updates. The tip for the week comes from Cobra. When multi-classing, plan ahead. It's good advice. I tend to get a lot better builds that way. So until next time, may all your attack rolls be crits, all your chests level appropriate, have fun, and don't forget to enjoy the night revels.